everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
Now we're covering the final film, the original Star Wars Trilogy,
Return of the Jedi. After a daring mission to rescue Han Solo from Jabba the Hutt, the rebels dispatched to Endor to destroy the second Death Star. Meanwhile, Luke struggles to help Darth Vader back from the dark side without falling into the Emperor's trap.
Yeah.
Chewie!
Yeah.
As the other two movies were, this was fantastic, magnificent, extraordinary, outstanding, one-of-a-kind cinematography, movie making, writing, producing, directing, acting, category of its own.
Yes. And best thing is, like, once again, everything about this movie is very iconic, from the time it opens up to the exciting battle to even the end, even to the very end, where there is a chance of redemption and there's a celebration and victory. It's a fantastic journey from the time you start this trilogy to the end, or if you start from this movie from the beginning of it to the end.
Right.
And definitely a lot of morals and parallels in it that are very, very eye-opening, even for the time that the movie came out in 83.
Right.
And especially, it's also always a chance for someone to redeem themselves, have a second chance, and do the right thing, which has also played a role, like, towards the end of the film.
Right. What I love about this series or franchise is that each one exceeded the one prior. And again, we're watching them in reverse order. But even reverse order, each one manages to just be spectacular. So this one didn't disappoint. We weren't going, oh my gosh, the first two were better. We were just as excited as we were for the first one and the second one and this third one. And this being over a 9-year period.
Right.
A lot of kids and teens, such as myself, grew up over that 9 years watching this franchise.
Right.
So, yeah, this is just, it's a time capsule. It literally is a time capsule in pop culture as well as in movie history.
Right. And like I said, and everything about it is very iconic, even with the music and certain scenes that which they parody or reference, and with all the actors returning once again for this movie, and how everything escalates from the time when Luke has to leave Yoda, when he passes on to be in the Force, and at the time he has to go and finally confront Darth Vader. Everything as it builds up, and it's not like it's rushing everything at you at once. There's still this grand build up to the climax.
Excuse me, guys, I'm sorry, it was 7 years, not 9 years. Forgive me for my off math, which is rare.
Okay. And it is, like you said, a testament to the writing that you have now seen. It's sort of, if you think about being retold. Now, there'll never be another Star Wars. Absolutely. Of course not. But it kind of brings to mind with My Hero Academia, and the creator of it is a gigantic Star Wars fan. And when they're coming up with theories and stuff, and you look at his style of writing, you can see that it's like a parallel to the Star Wars movies and what happens through Luke's journey, and with Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. Everything's been inspired by that, so it's almost like a modern day anime Star Wars with superheroes and stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Also, want to bring up, if you happen to watch Legends on the CW, they did an episode that actually we were quite surprised at it, and it was an interesting idea and concept to make. What if George Lucas had not done Star Wars? And in it, he was, the character that they created for George Lucas was afraid, people were trying to harm him, and he wanted to just give up and not do it.
Right.
And then one of the Legends heroes was like, no, you don't understand the impact you're going to have on generations later, and what you're going to do for the world, and our lives will never be the same. You can't not do this. You have to continue. You have to write it. You have to do it. And we were like, yeah, what if that never happened?
Right.
You never thought about it. And after seeing that episode, we were like, wow, nothing we know practically would be the same. And that's a tall order and a bold statement to make, but it's true, because Star Wars has permeated every facet of our lives. It even has permeated business, science, technology, as we said, movie making, history,
right,
in every genre and way except for probably medicine. Star Wars has had an impact.
Right, and that's how huge of a movie. Not only is this for the final movie in the trilogy, but not for just pop culture, just for the planet. It literally has a global impact on everybody who has seen it, and just as society as a whole. It's not just if they stereotype like, oh, it's something nerds like and they obsess over like Star Trek. It's nothing like that. Everyone has their own level of love for Star Wars. They can be super diehard fans. They can be fans that really like the movies and that's it, or ones that are just like, oh, that was good and that's it. But regardless of that, it always has an impact somewhere down the line in someone's life, someone's writing, someone's speech, someone's life. Anything at any point in time can be affected all by Star Wars.
Absolutely. And I have to say, as a kid watching this and growing up with it, still a kid when the final installment came out, this colored my world in terms of comics and animation. And when I saw comics and superheroes, to me, that just reminded me of the action and drama I was seeing on screen, and the morals and the lessons and things that came through, and they were woven into this movie. They were woven in, and they weren't preachy. They were woven in, and they were there.
Right.
And each of the characters was unique and dynamic, and even with their different personalities, you would see like Han Solo, you saw him grow, and you saw him learn. And you didn't know that when you were watching the last one, of where he had come from after seeing this one, Return of the Jedi.
Right.
Just how far he'd come. Just how far Princess Leia had grown and become even more commanding and powerful, and a great representation of women. And Luke Skywalker, seeing where he started and how he ended up, and Darth Vader, and knowing the story, learning what we always talk about when there's a character who's a villain, and for
redemption?
Some reason, yes, I'm so excited I can't think of it. A redemption arc, learning what a redemption arc really meant with Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. From here, you see it, how it progressed, and for me, it just had a really big influence. Star Wars, comic books, anime, animation. This does it all, and from what we see come later, the animated series that have been made as a result of these movies on different aspects of the story,
just impactful in every way imaginable in history since the time it's been released in the theaters to 2019 or 2020 or 2050. It is forever ingrained into the earth.
And I want to mention this also because the thought just occurred to me. And forgive me, I'm not rambling, but it was just a thought that came. Prior to this, you had Star Trek in the 60s with, my parents and your grandparents watching it. And when that came out, there was nothing like it. It was monumental. And still now, these actors and characters and things have had an impact and are still loved the fandom. And then about a decade later, I think, or a little over a decade later, you had Star Wars. And the same thing happened. And it wasn't until Harry Potter, because Lord of the Rings was great, The Hobbit was fantastic, and it has this fandom, but it did not permeate culture and history the same way Star Trek and Star Wars. And it took Harry Potter and that writing and that same type of dedication and love, and like having a child, and writing it and rearing and raising and letting it out. And she kept sharing with us the write of Harry Potter. She kept sharing with us
of how much just how much time it went into the story and world building. That's the word, world building, for everything that goes on. It was almost like Full Metal Alchemist.
Right, so you've got Star Wars, and then you've got, you got Star Trek, and then a while, and you got Star Wars, and then a big while, and then you had Harry Potter. So it's going to be interesting, since we are concluding with the original trilogy, to see what comes next.
Right.
Because history repeats itself. And there's going to be something else that impacts us the same way that Star Trek impacted parents and grandparents. The same way that Star Wars impacted me. The same way that Star Wars and Harry Potter impacted me and you. What's next? And it's going to have to be one hell of a story.
Exactly.
It's going to have to surpass Star Wars and Harry Potter and the original Star Trek. It's going to have to be a doozy.
Yes.
So I'm excited for it. I'm excited and waiting to see it. And I'm truly grateful for George Lucas and Star Wars and all it's meant in terms of my childhood and growing up, and how it made me look at the world differently. How it made me comfortable with being the way I was, nerdy, geeky, and okay with it, and not being ashamed of having a brain, and not being ashamed that, yes, I loved Barbies, but I also loved science fiction. I also loved dinosaurs, and how I learned of new actors that I never, of course, knew before, and how still now, all these decades later, still watch Harrison Ford in movies, watch Carrie Fisher prior to her passing, still love Mark Hamill, but now in voice acting, still love James Earl Jones. This is the impact it's had, and this is just me as a small example, what it has meant for me and in my life as a child to now as a Mama Entertainments. So Star Wars is one of a kind, never to be repeated, but I am excited and waiting to see what the next great thing will be in cinematography and in movie making.
Right.
And George Lucas, the impact he's had on untold millions, billions of moviegoers, as well as writers and screen actors, and the whole thing.
Right.
So I not planning to have shared what it's meant for me. Again, I know you just saw it, as you said, was it earlier this year?
No, it was a few years ago, actually,
When you first saw this original trilogy, how did it impact you? How does it impact you now with your video making on YouTube and your writing and so forth?
Well, it definitely did inspire me for some of my writings that you'll see in stories that are in original stories, not fan fiction, but in terms of that, they are sci-fi settings, and usually characters are usually inspired by, like, from Luke Skywalker or Han Solo, and you can even think of like music pieces sometimes if I'm thinking like of what soundtrack could be like.
I forgot about the music.
Or soundtrack could be like for something. You can have an Star Wars-esque theme to it, or you can hear the similar bars and tones and notes. And when you look at it, it's like you already know. You don't even have to have someone spell it out for you or make it as like a little trivia. It's like you already know when you see it, Star Wars.
Exactly.
And it's just endless fun from beginning to end when you start the journey and you finish it and beyond. And it's always great seeing the characters and revisiting them when you want to rewatch the movies. Absolutely.
And I'm so glad you brought the music up quickly on that. When the original came out in 1977, there were still records out. The little plastic disc. And
what's a record?
And there were so many concerts and albums and things that were created when that came out. Our uncle that we were mentioning, who loves Star Wars, he has original albums. When they had Star Wars, it was called, I think, Star Wars some type of galactic trip, and it was all the music from Star Wars that a band was covering, but it sounded so great and so fantastic you really couldn't tell the difference. And then each movie, of course, you had new music,
right,
and just new inspiration and new beautiful melodies and galacticness. I don't know if that's a word, but we're going to say it.
Oh, let's use it now. So
and it's inspired, the music also has inspired many, many people in all different genres of music. So again, the impact that this particular franchise has had is unparalleled.
Right.
That's just it. There's the
Absolutely.
word. Unparalleled. So, now that we've told you what this original trilogy has meant to us, both as myself as an original viewer and Rascal as a new viewer. Let us know what the entire original trilogy has meant for you or impacted you in your life in the comments below. We know you've got some great stories. Let us know. Take your time. We love to read, and we love to share in your joy.
All right. Yes. And thank you so much for joining us for these podcasts. They have been, and both of us have just had an awesome just blast talking about these movies and what we love about them and the impact. And like, you can go on for days about Star Wars. This is one of those things that is never just like, oh, I don't want to talk about Star Wars. It's something that could go on for days about its impact and everything. It's endless fuel.
And then you'll be joining us next time for the 2 installments put out by Disney.
Right, that would be The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for watching. I'm Masculine Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainments.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace, happy holidays, and
may the Force be with you.
Now, man, who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. Hit her in my dreams. She was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket. Give it to you later on in